Right. Tonight I will be acting as your Sergeant of Arms. I will call the meeting to order at 6:30. And we have a couple of speeches, and I'm going to just go ahead and turn over to our presiding officer, Elvis, since I'm the Toastmaster. So I wanted him just to kind of get the meeting started for us. So Elvis, take it over. I broke my own rules. I broke my rules. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. It's nice to be here finally. It's been a long time since last time I was here in presence. Welcome, everyone, and I would like to invite our guests tonight. Oh, Jenny is a new member. Well, I guess we don't have any guests tonight, so no introduction. I would then go ahead and introduce you to our one and only, our club president, man who wears many hats. It's our Toastmaster of the night, David Jones.
Appreciate it. And let's see, Balut is here. And I guess usually I want Balut, since he is the final piece of the puzzle to get people signed up, is to have him introduce our newest guests or our newest members. So I believe we have a new member. Since he's online and she's here, I'll just go ahead and introduce Jenny. Jenny is our 28th member and she's here. And you get a little ribbon for being a new member. So I'll give you that. So I am your Toastmaster for tonight. And tonight, when I was trying to think about my theme, I couldn't come up with a theme, so I just had to decide. So I decided on the word decide. So that's my theme for tonight. And every day we all have to make decisions. We have to decide every day whether we're going to come Toastmasters, whether we're going to come on Zoom or in person. We have to decide about work. We have to decide if we're going to pick up the phone. If it says mom, I don't pick up the phone usually. It has to be certain times of the day when I pick it up from her. But every day we're making tons of decisions. We all have to decide. We have to decide what we want out of Toastmasters. I was hoping there was going to be a lot of guests that had a lot of materials, but we don't have any guests. But we decide on whether we're going to get married. And we decide whether we're going to have kids. We decide, one of the hardest things for me is to get a divorce. That was a very difficult decision. And every day we have to decide with our relationships. And we can get into little arguments if we don't decide quickly. For instance, when you come home from a hard day's work and your spouse or significant other says, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, I don't know, whatever you want. She's like, well, no, what you want. And then that can turn into a fight. So you just need to be able to decide and just get on it and give her an answer or him an answer. So that's why I chose decide. And we're going to go ahead and start introducing our roles tonight, which I believe we're going to start with Ali, who is going to give us an inspirational talk. Right? A short inspirational talk before his bigger inspirational talk in a little bit. So, well, Ali, we can fist bump.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hello, Toastmasters. No guest. I had this 2 minutes prepared for our guest, so I'm just going to tell you what I was going to tell them. So essentially, we need to start pulling the trigger. And I'm not talking about guns. I'm talking about we need to start making quick, fast decisions and stop analyzing stuff so much. Because I'm starting to notice, I was in a real estate meeting last night, and there was somebody in that meeting, and this guy was talking about, I need to go get my LLC, I need to sit down with my attorney. This guy was talking about all this analytical stuff. And truthfully, some of us haven't even done yet. He's like, I need to get all this straight before I go out there and launch my business. And the leader told him, she was like, no, you need to pull the trigger. That's what you need. You need to take immediate action. Because if you don't pull the trigger, somebody else will. Right, Mr. Toastmaster.
It's funny how we are now fist bumping, but whenever we use our hand sanitizers, we go like this, but we don't clean here where the germs are always touching. So. Next up is our newest member, Jenny, who is our grammarian. So, Jenny, want to tell us your role?
Yeah.
Fist bump you?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, guys. This is Jenny. So my role is a grammarian, and my word of the day is intention. The meaning of intention is a thing intended, an aim, or a plan. An example of how you would use that is I intend to improve my public speaking skills. It's very related to why I'm here. I thought I would clarify the difference between intention and decision because of the theme tonight. It's to understand the difference. So both nouns, right? The difference is a decision, while an intention is a course of action that a person intends to follow. And just some context on that, I set an intention to improve my public speaking skills. So I made a decision to enroll in Toastmasters, which will give me the platform to do so. So I think that the both are very connected, because if we just make decisions without having kind of a vision or a goal of what we're trying to accomplish for our lives, then we're kind of just like shooting from the hip and just making choices that are not connected to a bigger path. So setting intentions, I think, is a big buzzword in our society right now. And so I thought it was very relevant. So that's it.
And then next up is our timer, Lon. And Lon, before you tell us about your timer's role, do you want to tell us what your intentions are with Toastmasters?
Sure. Well, my intention with Toastmaster is like Jennifer, or is it Jenny, said I wanted to improve my public speaking skills. Although I was a communications major back in college, I find that it's very hard for me to get on stage. And so I decided to join Toastmaster to kind of improve on that and build on confidence. And tonight I am your timer. So I will be timing the table topic speakers, formal speeches, which we have Stewart, did I say it right? Probably mispronounced his name, giving his first icebreaker for tonight and the evaluations. I will also alert each speakers of the time they have left using the green, yellow, and red cards, which will denote specific time. For the table topics, you'll have 1 to 2 minutes. And let me pull up that virtual background right now. So at 1 minute, it'll turn green. And then at 1 minute and 30 seconds, it'll turn yellow. At 2 minutes, it'll turn red. For the icebreaker tonight, you'll have 4 to 6 minutes, which I believe you also know that. At 4 minutes, it'll turn green. At 5 minutes, it'll turn yellow, and then 6 minutes, it'll turn red, which means that whatever you have left to say, we want you to go ahead and wrap up, but don't feel so much pressure on that. And then I believe we only have one speakers for tonight, or is there another one, Ali, perhaps?
Yes.
And okay, and the last one, we have the evaluation portions of this meeting, which will be 2 to 3 minutes. Again, at 2 minutes, it'll turn green. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, it'll turn yellow. And then last but not least, 3 minutes, it'll turn red. Back to you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Madam Timer. And I want to read a quick quote. I heard it and I thought it was really interesting. It's good for Toastmasters. And it's from the first female Toastmaster International president. Her name was Helen Blanchard. And she said, to get out of Toastmasters, all that you can get out of Toastmasters, you'll never get out of Toastmasters. And people like John and Vanessa and Elvis understand that. They've been longstanding members, and you don't just overcome your fear of public speaking. You keep going and you keep learning more and more and more. So I thought that was a great speech. And I believe we're going to stop keeping him on ice for his icebreaker. So we're going to go ahead and let Stewart do his icebreaker. He is in the strategic relations pathways. It's 4 to 6 minutes. And please welcome Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters. I'd like to say thank you, first of all, for welcoming me to the club. There are some very talented speakers here, and I'm hopeful that some of your skill will rub off on me. Just last week, I heard a well-known author use the phrase, and now I get to talk about my favourite subject, which is me. Frankly, I have no intention of talking about myself. I cannot think of a subject which makes me more uncomfortable to talk about. I considered talking about some of the reasons that made me want to join Toastmasters. And after some consultation with the Pathways materials, I realised that I can really talk about anything. So I've decided that I will tell you some stories to relate some of my observations to public speaking and the very limited experience that I've had. And that single event was my wedding. The wedding itself went beautifully and everyone had a great day. However, the wedding speeches highlighted some very interesting cultural differences. So in my homeland of Scotland, wedding speeches are a very significant part of the event. There are often several speakers who try to outdo each other with increasingly humorous and emotional speeches that sometimes last forever. My wife's family are from the western part of Virginia in the mountains and have forever been very active members of their church. And so I expected them to be very comfortable speaking to large groups of people also. When the ceremony was over and we sat down at the reception, I became hyper conscious of the fact that I was about to deliver my speech and became incredibly nervous. This was made more difficult by the fact that my father-in-law had to go first. He gave the most elegant and eloquent tribute to our union. This man looked like he was floating across the stage. He spoke with such cadence and spoke with a lot of substance, and his content was full of emotion. He had the audience captivated from the beginning. And you can see at the conclusion of the speech that everyone was visibly moved. In a shockingly harsh contrast to this, my brother absolutely destroyed me in his best man speech. Jokes and stories that I know he'd been brewing in his head for years. Things that I had conveniently forgotten about. The wedding guests were in a fit of laughter. People were screaming. He even broke the news to my poor mother in front of all of our guests that in my teenage years I had spent a night in jail. Even by Scottish standards, his speech was considered very risque. And I'm only thankful that my wife's grandparents, who are very traditionally Southern and conservative, are also very hard of hearing. It was very interesting to see how both my father-in-law and my brother played to their strengths and stayed true to their personalities. Even though they gave vastly different speeches, you could see how the natural appearance that they carried as they spoke put great weight behind the words that they used. My speech actually went fine in the end. I had to make some last-minute adaptations. My father-in-law, even though his speech was beautifully crafted, unexpectedly threw a curveball. He is a Christian man, and so a main theme of his speech was providence, whereas I had planned my speech to be centered around fortune, and that's what I had attributed to meeting my wife, was sheer luck. So I was very conscious of undermining the religious aspect of his speech. So I had to maneuver on the fly, which is something to this day I'm still not very good at. And that's why you might have noticed I'm terrible at table topics. Somebody told me in the days leading up to the wedding that a wedding speech is the easiest that you'll ever give because the audience are pulling for you. And this is true. But I know for a fact that the day will come when my boss asks me to give a speech on the impact of improved mortality tables on insurance-linked security yields to a room of actuaries who I'm sure will not be as enthused or excited as my wedding guests were. I'm just hoping that when that time comes, after having started this Toastmasters journey, I won't need a half a bottle of whiskey to get through it. Thank you.
Good job. Appreciate it. I can relate to wedding speeches. That was one of my 2 failures in life for public speaking, and it was my daughter's wedding. And as you know, if you're married, your wife tells you everything to do. And after the best man gave his speech, my wife was like, "You know, you're up next." And I was like, "No, I didn't know I'm up next." And it was a horrible speech. So I can relate to, especially if it's your daughter. So it's really, really bad. Next up is going to be Ali giving a speech, and my paper's over there. It says what it is, so I'm going to let you do it. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters. Today, my speech is going to be more like a conversation, a story tale, because I was recently I was in Whole Foods, and I was looking for some brown rice. So I saw this guy. He was like 6'7", big, strong. You can tell he works out a lot. Looks like a bodybuilder. I'm like, yeah, he knows what the brown rice is. I'm like, sir, where's the brown rice? But he's like, oh, it's over here. And so he's like, there's the brown rice. So I got the brown rice, and I was like, dude, do people ever think you're like an athlete? He was like, yeah, I get it all the time. They think he's like a baseball player, or they think he's like some professional football player. And I was like, yo, you should go be a trainer. And then he said to me, he was like, well, I've always wanted to be a trainer, but you know, just life hits me, and I got my job, I got my kids, I got my wife. And I'm telling him, I'm just like, dude, you need to go be a trainer. Like, you need to go chase after it. Whatever your dream is, go chase after it. And he's just like, he basically just pushing it to the side. And that's really what he wants to do. But somehow he got himself caught up with working at Whole Foods and then working somewhere else. But there's nothing wrong with that, because you gotta work. But somewhere he found himself not chasing after his dreams. So what I did, so I went home, I did some research. I said, what percentage of Americans are working jobs that they don't like? 60% came up. I looked at a lot of stats. I kept getting this 60% number. And I said, something's not right. Something's not right. So what I did, I was like, what is going on in America? Well, let's just be completely honest. It starts at the school system. Our school systems are manufacturing our kids to essentially go to work, but not actually chase after their dreams. And I can personally tell you that I feel as though the school system did a lot of failure upon my part. If it wasn't for my dad, if it wasn't for me being the person I am, and if I just did the traditional route, I would not be the person I am today. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that route, but there is something wrong. And I think you guys would agree. There is something wrong when you take that route and then you go do this route and then you waste all these years and then you go get a job you don't like and then you go marry some woman you don't like and then you go have some kids you don't like and then you go buy this house and you go buy this car and you're 30, 40 years, 60 years, and at the end of your life, you're sitting on your deathbed and you're just like, what did I accomplish? There is something wrong. So my question to you guys is, what's the resolution to this? Elvis, what's the resolution to this?
Everybody would have a approach to it. One of it is to make sure what your choices are, make decisions based on finding yourself and what you like, and not just follow the back.
Thank you, Elvis. Elvis said that we need to make sure we know what our choices are, what we want to do in life, and we can take the path that we want to go. And as I'm like talking to people out in the public and I'm reading these stats, I'm starting to realize that the majority of people are not making their own decisions. They're making decisions upon their family, their friends, or just what's in their mind, what their mind is telling them what they have to do. And I feel as though if the majority of people actually chase after their dreams and do what they want to do, we won't have that problem where we have 60% of Americans feeling as though they're not happy at their job. I mean, that's a lot of people. Would you guys agree that's a lot of people? Yeah. That's a lot of people that are just doing stuff that they don't want to do every day. And I just want to say, in order to be successful, you have to do stuff you don't want to do. I'm quite sure everybody here has worked a bad job before. I worked at Target, I worked at Express, and JCPenney's all at one time. That's the rat race. I've been in the rat race. I'm coming from this department. But what I'm saying is, though, there's another formula out there that you don't have to take this route, that you can go actually become somebody without having to do what everybody else did. And this is what I try to explain to my friends and my family and to the people I'm surrounded by. It does not matter what you do in this life. Don't waste time. Because like I said at the beginning, you will die and you will be on your deathbed. And you'll be looking at your dash mark and you'll be asking yourself, what the hell did I do when I was here? And you want to be able to say, I gave it everything I had. I watched an interview with Kobe Bryant, and they asked Kobe, they was like, do you have any regrets because you didn't pass Michael Jordan? Because this goal was to pass Michael Jordan. And you know what Kobe said? He said, no. He said, I got 5 rings, but I gave it all I had. So whatever you decide to do in your life, be the best version of yourself, give all you have, give 200%, give 1,000%. And then at the end of your life, you will have no regrets. And I think that's what we all want. Am I correct?
Yeah.
All right. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Lon, can we get a timers report from you?
Yes. So Stewart's came out at 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So he qualifies. And Ali, he was at 5 minutes and 31 seconds. So he also qualifies.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And since we're running ahead of schedule, Jenny, how are we doing on the use of the word? You have to come up here. They won't be able to hear you. Yeah, that way we can encourage everybody else to use the word. So
So I'm saying my own filler words, right? As a grammarian. Stewart had 3 so's, and he did use the word of the day, intention, which is great. Ali had 7 so's, 1 you know, 3 ands, 8 likes, and my 2 favorite ones though that I use in casual conversation, 1 yo and 1 dude.
all right. So don't forget, the word of the day is intention. So try to intentionally use that word in your speeches coming up. And let me think, what else? I guess now we're going to get to table topics. I'm going to introduce Jamie, who's one of our 3 newest members. Please welcome Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Greeting fellow Toastmasters and guests. I always have to adjust this. Apologies. All right, I will be facilitating the table topic session today. This is an opportunity for members and guests to practice their impromptu speaking. I will ask a question, and then each speaker will have 1 to 2 minutes to provide a response. At the end of the session, I will ask for the timers report, and anyone that stays within that 1 to 2 minute time frame will qualify. So with that, we'll open it up. I think, Elvis, you'll be my first table topic conversation. And I have a question for you. Are you going to come up? Yeah. All right, your first question. Can you all hear me on the screen? Okay. Your first question. Are you more of a spontaneous or a deliberate person And then how does that shape how you make decisions?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Thank you, Jamie, for that question. I think, I'm pretty sure of it, that I'm more deliberate than spontaneous. I like to calculate things. I'm a very analytical person. And in order to make decisions, I always like to go over analyzing 1, 2, 3, 4 options given. And I also believe in deliberate practice and doing things by means of making a clear choice, or making choices that would take you to some decisions that you have made based on a goal and a plan and something that is going to take you somewhere. So that has helped me in my life, in my career, my personal relationship with friends and family in a way that I would consider today as successful. So being deliberate has helped me achieve my goals and have helped me get to the things that I have already planned for in a very successful way. Back to you.
Great. Thank you, Elvis. I think I share a lot of those same feelings. I would fall more on that deliberate side as well, but I was curious how other people approached it. My next question, I think, is for Balut. David has nominated folks for today. Balut,
right.
your question is, when you're making an important life decision, who do you seek advice from and why?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. And thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. When I make an important decision in life, I consult my future self, and I consult my significant other, my partner, Leslie. I do that by writing out my thoughts on paper and seeing them clearly. That helps me see the consideration set more clearly and get everything out of my head. This way, I'm less emotionally attached to the decision and can see the parameters and different paths a little bit more clearly. And I ask myself, will my future self be happy, be content with this future decision and the state in which this decision would get me? And after I develop my own point of view, I talk to my partner and run these ideas by her too and seek her feedback, and then decide on a path and go after it. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Blue. Great response. I thought it was interesting how you're intentional about taking some of the emotion out of the decision-making process and making sure that you're doing so more on a fact-based approach and getting input from a lot of different directions. All right, my last question is for, I think, Vanessa. She's open to it.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
And your question is, once you've made an important decision also, what do you do next to set yourself up for success on that path? How do you prepare yourself to execute on that decision well?
That's a really great question, because I often spend a lot of time rehearsing my past decisions. And, sometimes I think there's a balance that has to be struck between just accepting that you've made the decision and moving on, but then also trying to learn, because sometimes I've had decisions that I've made and I've been constantly second guessing myself as far as, did I actually make the best decision? Was there an even more perfect path I could have gone down. And one of these times was actually when I chose my career path. I had a lot of different options I was considering, and I ended up going into consulting for the water utility industry, kind of an unusual career path. But as I thought about it, I realized that, actually, this is a pretty good option. I had really made the decision largely based on my gut feeling. And I had studied environmental studies, which was related, but there were so many things within that field that I had to go with something else to make the final career choice. And sometimes that gut feeling is actually pretty good. And I've realized that even though I might like to spend a lot of time evaluating myself and second guessing myself, often you can spend a little less time than you think you need to. And often that gut feeling is just about right. So I'd say that I'm trying to be less of a hardcore evaluator about my decisions now, but it's something I still work on. And there's some part of me that, like some of our other speakers have mentioned, is analytical, and I want to analyze what I've done. So there's a bit of both, but it's good to have that balance, I think. But that's an excellent question. I'll turn back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa, and great answer. I think it's similar to what Ali said, is trust your gut and make sure you execute on that decision that once you've committed to it. All right, can I get a timers report, please?
Yes. So Elvis came out at 1 minute 44 seconds, Balut 1 minute 23 seconds, and Vanessa 1 minute and 52 seconds. So every one of you guys qualify for tonight.
All right, congratulations. Thank you to all of our table topic speakers. And I will turn it back to our Toastmaster.
All right, and going back to our theme of the night, decide, and our intention. I'm on Meetup, and like I had shown everybody, we had 3 members who were gonna, or 3 guests who said they were gonna come, which that happens almost every week. We usually get 1 to 3 people that say they're gonna come and they don't come. And I do follow up with them. I do communicate with them, and they're all enthused, and for whatever reason, they don't come. And then also with Toastmasters International, if you go to Toastmasters International and you're interested, an email comes to whatever club is closest to you, and I'll also correspond with those people. And actually 3 of them are our newest members. We got Stewart and Jenny and Jamie. I contacted them with through Toastmasters International. They requested us, so their intent was to join, and they actually did. So kudos to the 3 of them, and those are our 3 new members. And with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to our general evaluator, Natalie Alberto. And Natalie, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Tonight I had to decide, and it was my intention to participate in this meeting, but originally I was signed up to give a speech. Now I share this because other people's decisions can have an impact on us. So I received a beautiful surprise this weekend. 2 of my friends flew in from Miami that I hadn't seen in quite a few months since the beginning of the year, and they're my sisters, but it really threw off the schedule of activities that I had planned for the weekend. And today I began a new project job, which is very exciting, but I was onboarding for most of the day. So adapt and adjust is one of my life mottos. And I reached out to David to let him know that I wouldn't be able to deliver my speech because I had been over ambitious, which was a decision I had to make. And I should have probably prepared. So lesson learned, plan even further ahead than you think you need to get started. That's something that I'm taking away from this, but I still had the intention of showing up and being here. So tonight I'm serving as your evaluator, providing an overview of the meeting. And first we will kick things off with evaluations for the individual speeches. Then I will evaluate the meeting as a whole. I'll throw it over to a timers report also to get a sense of how long our evaluators took, and then I'll get a grammarian's report before we wrap things up for the evening. So our first evaluator tonight is going to be Vanessa, who is evaluating Stewart's speech. Over to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Natalie. Well, first of all, a big congratulations to Stewart for having the courage to come here in person and give your icebreaker speech. I just feel like every time someone does that, they need another round of applause. I remember my icebreaker, and it's always one of those nerve-wracking feelings. But then once it's over, you're like, oh my gosh, I can do anything. This is such a great feeling. But as we all know, the intention of the icebreaker speech is really to help the other members of Toastmasters get to know you. And Stewart, it was so great that your speech did that very well in the form of storytelling. And I mentioned storytelling because that is one thing that evaluators love. And it's because it's really easy for our minds to remember things and really take things in when they are in the form of a story or a narrative. I love how you opened with something very relatable, your own feelings of being a little bit nervous when you were at your own wedding and had to give a speech. Now, I've never been in that situation, but the way you told it, the way you described the details about your home country of Scotland, the people who were at your wedding, it just brought me into your story. And I felt like I was there, almost like a wedding guest. And that's a great technique. And I think that a lot of us try to bring more storytelling into our speeches, and you've clearly got a talent for that. I also loved how at the beginning of your speech, your gestures were a little bit more self-contained. You had your hands kind of like this in front of your body, a pretty typical place for speakers to start out leaving their hands. But as you spoke and as you went through your story, your hand gestures opened up as well. You started to use them to emphasize some of the things you were saying. That's a great technique. It really engages the audience. It gets us looking at where your hands are going. And it's especially useful if it matches what you're talking about, which it did. So kudos to you for doing that. And you've clearly got a lot of great skills, such as eye contact, clarity. I could hear every word. And sometimes with Americans listening to a Scottish accent, it can be tricky, but you really enunciated so clearly, and I caught everything down to your actuary speech at the very end. So congratulations, excellent with that. One thing you can work on is maybe even more movement around the stage. And I say that more just because it can help to kind of force you out of your comfort zone a bit and help to keep it casual and relaxed if you know you're moving and kind of letting that energy flow through you as you speak. But overall, I'm so happy to have heard your icebreaker, and I'm really looking forward to your next speech. So congratulations again. I'll turn it back over to Natalie.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I agree wholeheartedly. It was a wonderful story, and I did feel like I was a guest at your wedding too. Thank you for sharing your icebreaker with us, Stewart. The next evaluation is for Ali, our second speaker, and it will be given by John this evening. Please join me in welcoming John.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I'll be evaluating Ali on his conversation about chasing a dream speech today, part of level 4 motivational strategies. And one thing that I always am amazed by Ali is that he certainly seizes the moment. I feel like Ali, you jump right into a situation, you can deliver a speech, I feel like on a moment's notice. So if there is a definitive person that says, I'm going to seize the moment, you certainly exude that. And it certainly resonates with me. If anyone, Natalie and David know, I particularly like inspiration. I always resonate with that, as I truly think that mindset is the key to having a successful life in general. What I liked about your speech, when you consider the content, is really just motivating through inspiration, motivating through just the real truth. You mentioned a couple times things that really stood out as I was trying to focus on what you were driving at is some of the rhetorical questions, right? When you're trying to motivate, you've got to say something that is going to have an impact, something I'm going to remember. And you saying things like reminding of us our own mortality. you don't want to have any regrets. And I personally identify with that because I feel like, having been around some people on their deathbeds, that have said they regretted things that they didn't do, not things that they did do. And I think you help bring that home by asking those rhetorical questions. And one thing I'd like to bring up, it's kind of a small thing, but I do think it's important. When you're asking someone in a crowd, I think you asked Elvis that question, that you repeated what Elvis said. And I think a lot of speakers sometimes forget that. You ask a question, they're like, what did he just say? And you repeated that. And I think that was important. It's a small thing, but I think you deserve special kudos for doing that. I just think that it's something some speakers often miss. Other things I like, vocal variety. You certainly, in order to stay interesting, I was once told by a veteran Toastmaster, there's two kinds of speeches. Ones that are monotone and go along a straight path, that's like a train. And what does a train do? It puts you to sleep. But if you're including inflections into your voice, it's more like a roller coaster. So you spoke with it like a roller coaster, it keeps us more entertained. Obviously, you have a very conversational tone, so it's very comfortable, and we can tell that you're very comfortable up there, engaging the crowd and telling your story. And I think some of the points you made really were quite inspirational and wanting us to act. Other things I think I would mention, I thought, like I said, I thought you had good points of volume or accentuated your points. One thing I think would improve your impact when you're trying to motivate is to include some pauses. As you're telling a story, or if you're asking that rhetorical question, let it sink in a little bit. Just like a moment of silence helps us remember and reflect on what someone just said. If you incorporate a few of those pauses, I think it'll make some of the things that you say that where you're trying to really get into someone and be very impactful to really help it resonate. And that will only improve the impact you make and have it be even more inspirational. Overall, I love your energy. I love your excitement, and I look forward to hearing more speeches from you, sir. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, John. I appreciate, and I'm sure Ali does too, that very thorough evaluation. I always learn so much from each of the evaluations and speakers, and I too live by that principle of high energy inspiration, very much intentional, and also considering mortality. So I'm going to just keep Ali's speech top of mind and remember to continue to pull the trigger and jump in, because as you said, John, he really does embody and live that and has a speech ready to go at a moment's notice. Lon, I'd like to just call on you for a timer's report.
Thank you, Madam Evaluator. So for tonight's evaluators, Vanessa, you came out at 3 minutes and 4 seconds, so you qualifies. John, 3 minutes and 40 seconds, so you also qualifies, both of you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Lon. I appreciate it. And congratulations, because I know it's your first time filling the role of timer this evening, and you've done a wonderful job. At this point, I'm going to give an evaluation of this evening's meeting. So beginning with the start, I think David does an excellent job of getting there early and setting up. He actually shared a photo on our Instagram, just encouraging folks to come out. So I thought that was a great way to tease the meeting. And with opening up the Zoom, I saw everyone in person interacting. There was a few of us here early too, so we were able to mingle, which is nice, and get to know each other further. I thought the theme this evening was excellent, decide, and also the word intention. I felt we went really deep, especially on the table topics. And I know I'm topic hopping, but they're connected. And I thought the speeches were also very profound. Stewart shared his story through his icebreaker. And I know at first he said he felt uncomfortable sharing about himself, but I thought he did that in such a beautiful and eloquent way. And then Ali inspired us also to just pull the trigger and dive in. What I felt was really awesome about tonight, and it's all members this evening, was that there are new members, but there's a really good group between both Zoom and in person. And many of the new members stepped up into roles that they've never done, with Stewart taking on the icebreaker. Jamie was doing table topics. Jenny came in as a grammarian and Lon as timer. So I thought that was fantastic for everyone to really pull that trigger and take on a first. They made a decision and showed up with intention, and I could feel the energy. So thanks for coming to the meeting, showing up and making the meeting possible, because without the roles, we don't get the full experience. I thought the word also was appropriate, as I said, and the evaluations were also great. I always learn so much from them, hearing the feedback. There's so much that I feel I can apply, and I'm sure everyone feels similarly. And Vanessa and John delivered very strong evaluations this evening. So I know we've, as far as time, been a bit ahead of schedule. We've moved quickly, and we'll probably end a little bit before schedule unless David has any surprises, which I'm unaware of. But with that said, I will turn it over to Jenny for the grammarian report.
Okay, well, I messed up. John, I missed yours. I wasn't sure if I needed to capture anybody that just spoke at any moment. So sorry about that. It's my first time. For the grammarian report for the rest of the people that were captured, Elvis had one one and as well. Baloo had one and two ands. For Stewart had one three so's, and used the word of the day, intention. Vanessa had 7 ands, 2 so's, and 1 you know. And then Lon, did I already give that one? I'm still remembering everybody's name, so sorry about that. And then for Natalie, had 3 so's, 5, you used the word of the day, intention, 5 times, which is great, and used and as a filler 3 times. And as I mentioned, John. Did I miss anybody? No. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jenny. And with that, I will give it back over to David, our Toastmaster and President.
Perfect. And I know I heard Vanessa use the word intent, or yeah, intention. Let me think. As you notice, we haven't been doing polls because polls are kind of difficult with the hybrid, because when we do them, they show up on the screen, so the people that are here are seeing what the poll results are. But if we just do them on Zoom, then you can't see them. And then we're also not having a ballot counter, therefore kind of leaving it to the discretion of the presiding officer to who to give the award to. But everybody who shows up and participates is winners. And I didn't realize, I mean, Natalie pointed out that all of our newer members are doing first-time roles tonight, so that was really awesome. So I think that's a great thing. And we are going to close out early. I don't have any surprises, no sing songs or dancing or anything. I'm just going to hand it back to Elvis and let him close us out. Please welcome Mr. Lopez. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, David, for leading us to this another successful meeting. I would like to go on with the awards, and as David just mentioned, there's no ballot tonight, so he threw me a very hard curveball. So I will go ahead with the icebreaker for tonight. Stewart, come over.
Thank you.
That was an easy one, right? The next one, Since we have only, or we had only 2 speakers tonight, we had an icebreaker. I would give the other one to our next speaker, Ali Tobin. And then the next 2 the best table topics. I think it was a tie between Balud and Vanessa. So to both of you, best table topics. And I think we also had a tie on the best evaluator. Great job, John and Vanessa. You both did a really, really wonderful job at evaluating. And now I would like to just open up for the officers. If you have any other business to show, to share, I would then take my VP of Education role or put my VP of Education hat. And I would like to congratulate actually Bulud for finishing up his first pathway. He just completed last week his level 5, which actually takes him into pathway completion. So help me in congratulating, and a big round of applause to Balloon. There's a certificate that we are going to be mailing you, and we were prepared to actually give it to you in person, but since you are not here, then we will be mailing it to you. So again, congratulations, and thank you everyone for another wonderful meeting tonight. And with that, I would like to adjourn the meeting for tonight. See you all next week.
If I'm half as good as Vanessa, I feel like I did a good job. You know, you're the best at evaluation, Vanessa.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yes, you are.
You
Yes,
did a
you
great
are.
job.
I know that if I could do, I was like, Vanessa's the other evaluator, I'm in trouble. Vanessa always kills it on evaluation. So I figured
All right,
I
thank
figured
you.
if I
Did a
can
great
do
job.
half as good as Vanessa, I'm doing okay. Always a good job. Good to see you though.
You too.
David?
Yes, thanks for stepping in last minute and doing a great
No.
job. So you and Ali are the same.
A lot of times I have no idea, so I'm gonna seize the moment whenever I can. So
It's
I'll
all
try to
about
be
the
more-
opportunity to do our public speaking each time, whatever opportunities we get. So it's great.
It's about doing the reps. That's what it's about. It's
There you
about
go.
doing the reps. So
Mhm.
thank you as always. Hopefully we'll see you next week.
Perfect.